The stellar accomplishment, of course, was the landing on the moon. 500 years from now, that's what's going to be remembered from the 20th century. But there's also Apollo 13 and getting it back. The public was relieved that we got the crew back, but most of us were impressed by the fact that something that we had not foretold, had not trained for, had not gotten a backup procedure for, we were able to overcome. And that's why the public frequently now it takes a look at Apollo 13 and thinks that failure is not an option. That was one of NASA's finest moments. And the other one is the Space Shuttle orbit.
Start. 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff.
I think it's the most marvelous machine ever built by man to be operated by man. There is nothing else like it in the world. NASA is alone in being able to fly and recover vehicles, and there is nothing that I can see in the next 30 years that can adequately replace it. Apollo 1 was to be the first manned test of the Apollo spacecraft. Wally Shirra Donn Eisele and I were on the backup crew. It was a real shocker to find that we lost a crew, not in space, but right there on the pad, and with something that we probably should have planned for, but didn't, and that was the fire on the pad. And 5 weeks later, as the backup crew, we inherited the first manned Apollo mission, which turned out to be Apollo 7. But as it was many things with NASA, what was a disaster with Apollo 1 turned out to be a real triumph with Apollo 7, because the spacecraft itself was a marvelous flying machine. It went 11 days. I doubt if they will ever attempt another test flight of a first vehicle like that for 11 days. So we were quite proud of the fact that we took and had a triumph out of a disaster. In the days of Apollo, I always looked at the landing on the moon, as challenging as it was operationally, I always looked at it as a demonstration of what we had already developed the capability to do. There was a time 40 years ago when exploring the unknown was very important to all of us, and we were all proud that we were engaged in a race with the Russians, and even prouder when we licked them hands down on landing the first man on the moon. Max Fouché, who designed the Apollo spacecraft and the Mercury and Gemini spacecraft, said a couple of years ago that one of these days they're going to want to go back to the moon, and then they will find out just how good a job we did.